Hi, Julia. It is so nice to be here with you today. To start our interview, I wondered if maybe we should introduce ourselves to our classmates now that they can see us live and in person, and then we'll get on to discussing our questions about care, compassion, and empathy and social work.
Yeah, that sounds like a plan to me.
Great.
So yeah, do you want me to introduce myself? Okay. So yeah, my name's Julia. I am completing my MSW out of Sudbury, Ontario. Started in August, so should finish in 2023. I work at the police service here in Sudbury on a grant-funded position that deals with human trafficking and sexual violence, and I'm also a crisis responder with our local victim services.
Terrific. Maybe I'll just go ahead and introduce myself too before we get into the questions. Should we do that?
Yeah,
sure.
That sounds good.
So my name is Janice Kootenay, and I live here in Black Falls, Alberta, just moments north of Red Deer. And I am in a part-time social work, master's of social work program as well. Looking forward to all of this learning. I'm 30 years into my career. However, learning never stops, as we know. So it is great to be here. What's interesting, just moments ago, learning about you is what we have in common is we've both been victim services advocates. So that's incredible experience. And yeah, I'm looking forward to learning more through you, Julia. So this is terrific.
Mm-hmm.
One of the questions we've been asked in this course is about care, compassion, and empathy in social work. So the two of us have prepared some questions today to talk about these ideas. So I'm going to read off one of the questions, and I'm just going to reflect back some of your answers as well. What does compassion mean to you? Provide an example of providing compassion within your practice and compare it to empathy. Do you think it is an important piece of social work practice? So there's a few questions there. Let me know if I need to repeat them.
Okay, sounds good. To me, I think compassion can be many things. It's more so the action of helping someone, in my opinion. So when people say they're providing compassionate care, it's not just listening to someone's concerns and hearing them out. It's acknowledging the concerns and seeing what you can do to help. Empathy and compassion do have their similarities, but I also think they're different. Empathy is more of the emotional response to another person's feelings. It allows us to show that we're feeling and understanding the other person's feelings and experiences. Whereas I feel like with compassion, you have more of a desire to help the people who are suffering, to help alleviate that suffering.
I would agree with you completely there. I like how you've said that.
Yeah. I think as well, listening to that YouTube video in week 2, I believe.
Super powerful.
Yes, it was really interesting for me because it had me reflecting on when it comes to social workers providing compassion and empathy, and how reflecting on when we're operating in that westernized healthcare system, like it's very westernistic, and being mindful that I could feel like I'm being compassionate to someone, but I may not actually be meeting their needs and actually delivering the compassion that they need. So I think that was a very, very big moment for me where I realized, wow, like I could think in my head that I'm being compassionate, but deep down, like maybe I'm not actually helping them. So it's just something to reflect upon. And that ties into the example I have of that. So as a crisis responder with victim services, empathy and compassion is a big tool in my work. It's something I take with me to every call that I go to. We respond to calls of sexual assault, domestic violence, all the way to sudden deaths, tragic circumstance. So without giving too much details, I went to a call and it was a death of a young individual who was Indigenous. So there was a big Indigenous family around. And I provided the care that I would when we do go to these calls. The compassion, you sit with them, you listen to them, you explain the process of if it's deemed sudden death, there's an autopsy, you explain them all those processes and kind of how to go about them. I felt leaving this call, I felt very like something was wrong. Like I felt like ill-equipped. Like I felt like I walked into the situation like not really knowing how to support Indigenous families through grief and loss and bereavement. And I think like that's on me because I should have known. But it's also the organization I was working with, right? That wasn't part of our training as well. So I debriefed with my supervisor because I really felt like I could have walked into that situation with more knowledge and support. And they taught me a lot about the process. So they taught me about the cedar bath and how they typically give individuals who have passed a cedar bath. It's like a traditional medicine for them. It's very sacred, and a bunch of different traditions that they do. Usually their funerals are really big, which was a challenge for them because of COVID. So I left knowing more than I did when I walked in, but I still felt like I'm the helper. Like I should know, I should have known more walking in. So yeah, I debriefed with my supervisor. And I think when you go to these experiences, it also comes with a level of accountability. So I debriefed with my supervisor, and it was one of the first couple of sudden death calls I had gone to in the position. And she was like her answer was twofold. Like she completely got where I was coming from. And she said, okay, we're going to get some training. They set me up with some online training. And then she was also like, you're never going to feel good when leaving a sudden death situation because you'll feel like you didn't do anything because you're just like, you can't change the situation. Right. So that helped a bit. But I took the online training and it was awesome. And now they provided every crisis responder with like kind of like a toolkit. So now when we attend these calls, we actually have smudge kits we can bring with us and offer that to them,
Nice.
which is awesome. And then we also have contact with some elders in the community who can also come out and provide that support.
Nice.
Yeah.
What I heard out of that, Julia, is lots of action items, right? Recognizing how this event impacted your practice.
Mm-hmm.
There's areas that certainly needed to be attended to. So getting that training online, bringing in these smudge kits, attending to where the client was at,
Mm-hmm.
and really paying attention and listening in order to learn from them. Yeah, so that's awesome, right? To be able to take in that learning. There's so much to learn from people when you're open to learning.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely.
And like it's not like I attended that call and left. Like I was at that call, I remember, for a good like 4 or 5 hours sitting with the family. And there was a lot of them around, but I still left and I felt like not good. Like I was just like, oh, like I wish I had more, you know?
Right.
So yeah, it was a big reflection piece for me.
Yeah.
So I showed up to that call still providing the compassion and empathy that I knew how to provide at the time, but it didn't necessarily have that cultural lens. But now I learned from it and now I have that. So in terms of incorporating it into social work practice, I think it is very important. Especially compassion, because yeah, like you said, it's the action, it's acting on the helping process essentially.
Right.
You know, empathy and even sympathy is, you know, you feel for individuals, you're trying to understand how they could feel, but the compassion really adds that, like, so what am I going to do about it? Which is to me like a bit more of that advocacy piece.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that. And I read an article on compassion in social work practice, and it made me think of the article we read in week 1. I'm trying to think of the name of it, Recapturing Social Work's First Voice, I think it was. And it talked about like our early roots and humanitarian roots as social workers and how they've really been challenged and have changed and into more timely and evidence-based practices. So I feel like as social workers, as much as it's so important, we're constantly being challenged by by our, you know, employers to do our work in the most efficient and fastest way, right? So it's, you can still do the work with fast and efficient with compassion, but it's just, that kind of was interesting for me as well.
Yeah. The articles in this course so far actually have been very interesting for me. And I think that might lead us kind of into our next question around some of the examples I brought up. I like the article about the friend tenant and the disability article. Yeah. So I wonder if I could share some examples also.
Yeah, for sure.
And continue this rich discussion around compassion and empathy. I agree with you completely. Love what you're saying. I think it's such an important part of social work.
For sure. Makes a big difference. So with that said, I can ask you your question now, or the question that I have for you, if that works with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So social workers are known for being caring, compassionate, and empathetic practitioners, but when asked to critically reflect on these skills, can you tell me where it shows up in your work?
So I think for me, when we're reflecting, self-reflection is also a skill, and we have to be open to learning and taking in all of our experiences and continue to grow from those experiences. And when we are listening with the intent of learning from the client in front of us, I feel like we're showing them that we're compassionate, that we have empathy, that we really do want to have the best care plan possible. My biggest issue for clients is when they don't have a voice at the table. And I think that sometimes when we speak about care, we forget that it's not about the busy work to make sure clients are attended to, but really allowing them to be present and have that voice and use their language. And so the article that I really appreciated was about disability and friend tenant, because my examples would be similar to that. We have I'm going to call them a friend now because they're no longer clients, but they still rely on us for support, that unconditional positive regard, when, let's say, they're in crisis, or they are having trouble trying to figure something out, or they had a crappy experience that they need to debrief. Or so the one is a young man who now lives outside of our region. He identifies as male. However, when he lived here in central Alberta, that was not what his family referred to him as. And it was incredibly difficult. He ended up in foster care. He had cerebral palsy that had significantly impacted his speech. He's an intelligent, bright, funny young man who we keep in contact with now to try to support him. But had we not given him his voice when he was a youth here in Red Deer, I don't know that he would have saw all of his strengths. Now he's in commercials. He flies all over the country to take in Comic-Con. He finds the resources to have his needs met because he is a very strong advocate for himself, because he was given those opportunities. I think when people are given the opportunity, they will find their solutions, right? Mm-hmm. But when they're constantly told what they can't do instead of what they can do, it makes a big difference. We have another young man who my husband and I are alternative guardians for. He was labeled as the most aggressive autistic man here in our region, and no services would be willing to take him into their care facilities. However, the facility that had him when my husband and I were now signed on as alternative guardians, his mother was dying of cancer. And we took on more of an active role in his care, but he was being grossly mistreated and abused, truly locked in a basement with a Dutch door, with no natural sunlight, monitored by video cameras. Well, we were sick. So our own self-care was really important during those times, because had we not been taking care of ourselves as well, we probably would have quit the field, because it was disgusting what was going on for this client. However, we were able to reach out to our supports and our networks. we were able to get him into an appropriate program, however, outside of our region, but he is flourishing. He's in guitar lessons, he's in cooking class, he's in singing karaoke class, he's goes for pizza every Thursday night. He is visiting his family here in Central Alberta regularly. He's communicating better. He's not as rigid and inflexible as he used to be. It is just a dream. We wish his mom was alive to see this, because unfortunately she passed away at a time when things were not good for her son. And now he is flourishing. So again, I think as social workers, when we show care and compassion, when it becomes the foundation to our practice, and we really have a solid understanding of what that means. I appreciate, Julia, your description and kind of your outline of what the difference is between the two, because I agree, one is about the feeling and one is about the action. And we really need to be mindful of, is our care practices maintaining an oppressive stance, or is it liberating people to be self-determined and get their needs met and.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I really appreciate this course, because I think it really does push us to think about, what does this look like in my practice? What does this look like for me? And it's been exceptional learning so far. It's been really great.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And I really like with your examples, like they're phenomenal. I'll just say that, but I think it really shows how, like, even approaching the work with care, compassion, and empathy, but with that strength space and drawing out, like having the ability to see the best in people,
Right.
And drawing those out to the forefront, like making them realize it as well, is huge. And you use the language unconditional, like when you mentioned how your kind of ex-clients you call friends, and how we're always going to show up no matter what, no matter if they're not our clients anymore, like they're not, we're always going to be there. And I think that's such an important piece. And another thing I like that you mentioned was like self-compassion and self-care. Like we give and give and give. It's so important to show the self-compassion for ourselves as well.
Yeah. I think we have to be healthy and well,
Mm-hmm.
in order to project that.
Yes.
To whomever we're helping, whether that's community, whether that's individuals. And
Mm-hmm.
I think certainly during these times of crisis and COVID,
Mm-hmm.
our own health, like really paying attention to our own health and wellness is so important, because there's so many people right now that truly need our services.
Mm-hmm.
If we're bitter and angry and projecting that, that's not helpful. People mirror neurons. People, recognize that if we're not regulated, they're not going to be regulated. Yeah. So there's just so much, right? That the other thing I wanted to quickly bring up was family. When you spoke about working with Indigenous people, and the family was quite huge.
Mm-hmm.
That's the other thing I think that's important for us to also remember, is we don't get to determine either who people's support systems are and who identifies as family.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because you can have family that are completely vacant in your life, and you can have people who you identify as family and they have no blood relation, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And I remember that call, we were in the middle of serious COVID restrictions, and I was wearing a mask in there, but obviously I didn't expect anyone else to. It was just our own organization policy, and people kept coming, and that's okay. Like you need the support, and they needed each other, and I'm not the one to tell them no. So
yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
This has been terrific. I really appreciate being able to talk to you. I think that even though, I'm shifting towards the end of my career, perhaps you appear as though you're at the beginning of your career.
Yes.
It sounds like our views on the foundation of social work practice is very similar. And that's really nice to see too. I hope to learn more from you. I'm anxious to learn more about what's happening in your practicum. We're in that course together as well.
Yes.
And yeah, this has been really nice. So
Yes.
thanks for spending part of your day with me this afternoon. I
Thank
think
you.
it's afternoon at your house. It's just starting afternoon at my house.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Awesome.
we will see you in the chat rooms.
Yes. Sounds good. Thank you so much, Janice.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.